The story's called Grand Union. When I was 16, I used to work at a cashier at Grand Union grocery store up in New York City. Most of us who worked at that age worked in grocery stores. Some as bag boys, some as delivery boys, some stock boys. I worked as a stock boy for a while, but being a cashier was much better suited for a person using heroin. We were all bonded and all our mistakes on the register were covered by insurance. We would make money by forgetting to ring up certain items, or by, you know, I'd be fucked today if they did that with all that automatic stuff. I wouldn't have made a penny. We would make money by forgetting to ring up certain items or by bringing in coupons and cashing them in. There were other ways to scam too. And I would usually work it out that I made an extra $10 a night. This was plenty for a 16-year-old kid who was still experimenting with junk and not really addicted. For the longest time, I would only do dope on the weekends, especially when I was in the Catholic high school. Up into my 11th grade, I really wanted to do well in school, but by the end of the 11th grade, I just didn't give a shit anymore. So during my weekend warrior junkie run, I had this one friend, this guy DJ, who was always trying to tempt me with dope. Even before I started getting high, he was always trying to get me to use. I think it was a case of misery loves company. DJ's family was one of those big Irish families. There was a history of diabetes in his family, so we always had works. He used to steal his brother's glass syringes with the stainless steel spikes. One day, DJ calls me up and tells me he wants to get me high. At first, I wasn't interested. You know, it was a weekday, and the fact that I had to go to work in 2 hours didn't help. But he talked me into it. He told me to meet him at the pigeon coop we'd built together down by the East River. I met him down there, and he had these $6 pound bags from the Heights. A pound bag was normally $5, but when you were a white boy, you paid an extra $1. The bags he had were huge. Pound bags normally came double bagged because they held so much dope they tended to leak. So the bag would be a glassine bag folded over once, filled to the fold with dope, and then that bag was slipped into another glassine bag and folded and taped shut. So I get to the coop, and DJ had already gotten high, and man is he high. At this point, I'm still skin popping. Still hadn't made the move to mainlining. DJ suggests I be careful and not main it. So he hands me one of these $6 pound bags, and like I said, it was huge, a really full bag. At this time, the dope in Inwood wasn't that bad, especially when it came from this area in the Heights called Frangito Village. Most of the dealers there copped down to Spanish Harlem. Spanish Harlem was also where there was a community of Italians who had really good drug connections. So this was filtered down to the Puerto Ricans in that neighborhood. When I first started getting high, you could get capsules filled with heroin, really good heroin for 75 cents. But they seldom made it up to Inwood in that form. The Puerto Rican junkies from Inwood would get them, put them in glassine bags and sell them for $2 or $3, or maybe 2 for $5. So DJ hands me the bag and sits down to nod out. I cook up the contents of the bag. I still have a fairly low resistance, so I'm thinking, it's only a half bag. So I cook it, draw it up, and skin pop it into my upper arm. Usually it takes about 15 minutes to hit you, So I clean the works, give him back to DJ, and we walk back to where we live. Now DJ is high as hell, and when DJ got high like that, he puked, and he puked a lot. I can still picture him standing between 2 parked cars, velocity vomiting and yelling, "Don't look at me! Don't look at me when I'm puking!" Of course, no one was ever looking at him, but he was always afraid someone would. DJ was already a slow walker. He was never an athlete. Actually, DJ was a fat kid. The kid who all the older guys in the neighborhood would give change just to see how much he could eat. He'd get a pocket full of change and go to Eli's candy store and load up on ice cream, soda, potato chips, dropping ice cream all over his shirt as he struggled to eat it all before it melted. So DJ still walked like he had an armful of ice cream and other goodies. This time he was so stoned he was puking every few feet, and I just had to leave him. I had to go home for dinner and then go to work. So I hurry home, but as I do, I start to feel the dope, and it keeps coming on. If I had mainlined it, I surely would have OD'd. By the time I get home, I know I'm screwed. If I went home and didn't eat dinner, my parents would know I was high. This wasn't long after I had confessed all my drug use to my parents, and my mom attended all kinds of meetings to find out the warning signs of drug use, and loss of appetite was a definite sign. So I was forced to eat. It was pork chop night in the Driscoll household. Pork chops with applesauce on them. Mashed potatoes. We always had mashed potatoes at home unless we were eating spaghetti. So I scarfed down to dinner because I was getting late for work. My mom looked at me a little funny, but I don't think she knew I was high. After dinner, I left the house. We lived on the 3rd floor, and by the time I hit the vestibule of the building, I was doing a DJ and puking. Velocity puking my dinner up in the hallway. I didn't have the time or the inclination to clean it up. If I had gone back upstairs for a mop and a bucket, it would have been a sure sign to Mom that I was high. So I just left it and went to work. At the Grand Union, the workers had a reputation of being drinkers. We'd come in drunk or drink during work, especially if you worked on the night shift. The night crews stocked the shelves and did inventories and stuff like that. But I was the only one there shooting dope. A lot of the guys smoked a little weed, but the bulk of them were just wet heads. So I'm at the register, and I'm really, really high. Doing my best not to nod out at the register. I'm feeling good thinking I've exhausted the dinner that I scarfed down earlier and was kind of enjoying the high. I only had a few hours left. I was pretty confident I could get done and then go to the park and nod out for an hour or two and then go home. But it didn't work out that way. All of a sudden, after ringing up a particularly big order, I got hit with an unusually strong wave of nausea. I was trapped in my little space by the register. I looked around quickly just after hitting the total button and wham, out it came, right into the cash drawer. Quite a large stream and the remainder of my dinner. My customers were an older woman and her daughter who was just about my age. They couldn't believe it, and I tried to carry on like nothing had happened. I went to hand her the change when I realized the change was dripping in puke. She recoiled and asked me, "Are you all right?" There was not a whole lot I could say. And the manager of the place came running over and told me to go to the bathroom. So I staggered into the back room and cleaned myself up. All my friends were laughing. I went back into the manager's office and he yelled, "That's what you get for drinking on the job." I was about to tell him I wasn't drunk until I realized it's better to be caught at work drunk than high on heroin. Then I looked around the office and saw the manager had strung a clothesline up all over his office and was hanging from the line the dollar bills he had just washed off. He asked me if I wanted to call my parents and come get me, but I had to squash that. If they called my parents and told them I'd thrown up on a job, they would have realized it was me that threw up in the hallway. So I got out of there and went to the schoolyard at junior high school 52 and nodded out for a few hours.